The following is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokey Wrestling with Coach Kevin Dresser and his staff. Now, let's join your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, Jason Bryant.
It's Season 3, Episode 2. That's how I'm changing things up. We're not going to just number these things like 38, 39, 40 anymore. It's Episode 2 of Season 3 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. I've already gone off the rails. Today, we're going to be talking with Hokey Wrestling coach Kevin Dresser to talk about two wins over the weekend, the Southeast Open, formerly known as the Hokey Open, and Chattanooga coming up at the Moss on Sunday, November 13th. Coach Dresser, the wrestling season's here, man. Is it a sigh of relief, or is it, a buildup of stress that comes with it?
Well, probably both. That's a good question. It's probably both. I mean, it's especially when you have home matches. Home matches are always fun, but they're always a lot more work for us administratively because you focus on you've got recruits coming in, and you've got parents coming in, at least more parents coming in, and you've got, of course, you're working promotions, and so, but the home matches are fun, and obviously this weekend being at the Moss, that's a lot of fun. So, yeah, and then you got to do your real job, and that's get the guys ready to compete. So, I'm glad it's early, but yeah, I'm really glad it's here. It's why you coach. You coach to watch your guys improve and compete, and hopefully that's what we're doing.
Opened up the season with a dual meet victory over Edinboro, an old EWL rival when the Hokies were in the EWL, 24-13, and then trounced VMI 39-6. Nothing too unexpected with VMI, but Edinboro, you kind of really never know what Tim Flynn's going to put on the mat because he seems to find diamonds in the rough all the time. Going in, I mean, was there any apprehension about how tough the Fighting Scots were going to be this year?
Well, you said it. They're always tough. Tim Flynn might be maybe be one of the top three coaches in the nation, and I say that, and he's a friend of mine, but he really is. What he's done at Edinboro is tremendous, and when you get those, he recruits a little bit out of Ohio, but predominantly Pennsylvania. When you get those guys, you better be ready. So, I was, especially not having Ty and having to forfeit heavyweight, we didn't mark this one up as a gimme, that's for sure. There were some close matches that we won, so good team. They're going to continue to get better all year long. So, it was a good test for some of our guys. Some of our guys really got a great test the first weekend, and that's what we need, especially going into, the trip to the Midwest and then the trip to Vegas. We got to be a little battle tested. So I thought Edinboro was a good start there.
Yeah, and 39-6 over VMI. The only loss there was the forfeit at heavyweight. And one thing I want to point out is we talked briefly before we started the show that I was down in Iowa this weekend announcing the preseason nationals at the Unidome in Cedar Falls, which is across the street from where you guys will be wrestling in a couple weeks, West Gym at Northern Iowa. But at some point they've got a new video board in there, and this thing is ginormous, and it's really good for FCS. Let me get my acronyms right, for FCS football, in which you and I participates. But that facility, you know it well from National Duels a couple years ago, that it really loans itself to wrestling competitions. Well, one of our event directors, Rob Cate, put the Virginia Tech Edinboro match on the other half of the big screen. So we got kids looking at their bout calls, and then we got Division I wrestling right there on the big screen. So we put a little Hokey Nation up there. And although it was a little interesting, I did have to preface this by saying I know that Virginia Tech's not the most liked team in the state of Iowa. They did appreciate watching some Division I wrestling there as the tournament went on.
Good. I'm glad you got that up there. That's the way to do it. Yeah, get those parents and those little kids in the college wrestling spirit. That's good. We need to do more of that.
I will say the coolest thing I did see, though, was when Solomon Shishko was wrestling Patricio Lugo. South Dade had a large group of kids in this tournament up in Iowa wrestling, and I looked over, and I see a pile of kids looking up at the board, and I realized, whoa, those are South Dade kids. And then I look up, and I'm like, they're watching Lugo. And then right at the very end, when Shishko hits the takedown to force overtime, they're like, no. I mean, it was just one of the coolest things to be at a tournament. And I mean, granted, it was for Edinboro, but I'm paying attention to the match and I'm watching these kids who, this is what they're aspiring to be. This is kind of a public service announcement for all wrestlers. It's cool when you go out there, the Christiansburg kids get to watch Dance and Epperly, and these South Dade kids get to watch Lugo. I mean, it's like that everywhere. That's the great thing about wrestling is, hey, we can be there too.
Well, I know that's a huge motivator, and I say that all the time. Even when I was a kid growing up in Iowa, getting to watch, Iowa Public Television on Saturday nights and watching Iowa and Iowa State, whoever they competed against, or also they might have competed against each other. But that was a huge motivator when I was those kids' age, I can tell you that. And I always encourage youth, middle school and high school wrestlers to get to college matches. And I was one of those kids. One of the first college matches I ever got to go watch live was Iowa State. It was about an hour and 15 minutes from where I grew up. And there was this guy named Dan Gable that wrestled at Iowa when I was just a little kid. And we got to go watch Iowa State wrestle. And that's a pretty cool way to start your college wrestling career out as a fan. So it's important for those little guys to get out there.
Now let's talk about the actual event now that the pageantry of how I was watching the match, because I'm announcing a tournament and keeping an eye on this thing because I was like, I got to prep for the show. But starting out 125 pounds, Joey Dance, he has a tough one to start off the season. Sean Russell, a Georgia kid, wrestling up at Edinboro, an NCAA qualifier. You knew this wasn't going to be an easy one in any way, shape, or form. And, how would you rate Joey's performance on the day? 3-1 over Sean Russell, 7-1 over Dalton Henderson.
Well, the thing that people probably don't know a lot of, and we didn't make it really public knowledge, was that Joey hasn't had a ton of mat time. He probably had, to be quite honest, about 4 or 5 mat workouts in the past 2 months. We had a bursa that we were trying to deal with, and we got it fixed. We just didn't get it fixed as soon as we wanted to. So he did a lot of training, but nothing on the mat at all, nothing at all. And so he literally has probably had 5 or 6 workouts up until this weekend. So we feel like we're just getting him back into shape, and he's 100% healthy right now, but we knew that, he's just rusty. He just, wrestling's a lot about timing, and so he didn't get a lot of live. But, he's a senior, and Joey's not the kind of guy that wants to sit and watch, and we just felt like he probably needed to get out there, and he's done a good job with his weight. And so we threw him out there, and because we knew we needed him, especially with Ty not being there, and he wanted to give it a go. So we tested him 4 or 5 days, and he was ready to go. So very average, though, considering everything I just said. Very average, and he knows he's got to get a lot sharper, and that's what we're going to do. He's got a big week, maybe not so much this weekend, but the next weekend he's got his work cut out for him, and I think he's even the underdog in a match. And he's not the underdog much, but I think when we go to UNI, according to the rankings, he's the underdog. So we need to have a great week of practice. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. So what's the risk there as a coach? Because we look at the way the rankings and the seedings work for NCAA championships and how, they've been kind of wonky in certain places where, a win in November actually carried some weight more so than a loss in March. And, I think Sean Boyle got a really high seed, from Chattanooga 2 seasons ago. And, do you look at this as a coach and sometimes go, well, knowing what you know about, his lack of mat time, was there any thought about saying, all right, let's try something else here and hold Joey out for this one duel?
I don't think so. I think everybody's different. I think there's probably guys on our team that would have been in the same situation we might have held out. But I think we all agreed as coaches that we need to get him in there, and best way to make it real is make it real. So that's what we did. And as far as the whole seeding things, that's always a tough subject at the end of the year. There's always somebody that you feel like didn't do a good job with, and some guys get more benefit of the doubt. I do think this last year's seedings were better than the year before. The year before they were horrendous, and the coaches, did make a stink about it, and they came back in and changed the criteria, and I think they changed it for the better, but it's never going to be perfect, and nobody's ever going to like it.
Moving to 133 pounds, Dom Latona, Alabama native, goes in there, goes 1-1, kind of gets pushed pretty good in a loss to Corbin Myers, and then picks up the come-from-behind victory over Hunter Starner. What are we looking at 133? First of all, thoughts on Latona's performance with the 1-1, and what's your answer going to be here as we move later in the season?
Well, he's a freshman. He's a guy that we brought in to kind of develop, and didn't anticipate him being in there because we had a couple other guys. I mean, it goes kind of all the way back to Kevin Nordstrom, and he was a 33, and things didn't work out for him last year. Great kid, and then we got Dennis there, and Dennis kind of grew out of the weight, and then we've got another kid there, Ryan Haskett, who's not eligible till mid-December, and so now you're down to on the depth chart, kind of the fourth guy, and that's why you have to have depth. But Dom's a guy that's going to get some mat time this year, and he's going to it's going to kind of be trial by fire. So he's going to improve a lot, but there's going to be some lumps along the way, and so we just have to focus on getting better every day in effort. And I thought he did that. I thought he gave us good effort. Obviously, he needs to get a lot better wrestling, and he knows that. But the effort's there and the work ethic's there. And he got his first college win. It might not have been pretty, but sometimes when you're young, you got to win, and getting your hand raised and it not being pretty might be part of it. So. We're going to have availability of Ryan Haskett mid-year, and we'll kind of see. I mean, I think right now we want both those guys in there competing for us and getting better as the year goes around, and we'll see how things are. And by the time we get to the end of the year, and who's the guy? And
so the plan still is to redshirt Kyle Nordstrom.
Yeah, Kyle Nordstrom just coming off. He's wrestling live. He's really looking good, but he just started to wrestle live. He weighs 135 pounds dripping wet, so he's not a guy you want to throw in there at 133. He's not a 133-pounder, and he's literally just got cleared to wrestle 2 weeks ago, and he hasn't wrestled for 6.5 months. So that wouldn't be fair to him. So our plan is to redshirt him and solid 100% redshirt all year unless something funky happens, and let's hope nothing funky happens.
Dennis Gustafson, solid. I mean, not sporting the brace. Looks like he's confident out there. I mean, this is something that I know Hokie fans were talking about on Tech's sideline was, having him out there without the brace. Goes out there, granted, not the best competition that's going to push him, but at 141, going to settle in there. And thoughts on his performance.
He was good, and he's really looked good in the room, and he feels good at the weight. He's going to probably get a little bit of a test this weekend. Just on paper, not a great test, but obviously the next week he's going to get thrown to between you and I, Missouri. That's when I really want to see where Dennis is at. And he's making progress. He's doing good things in the room, and we all know that he can wrestle. If we can get him offensively, he's really, really good. We got to shore him up defensively every now and then, because every now and then he loses focus a little bit, or at least has in the past, and gives up some stuff. So. But everything we see right now is really good in the room, and everybody loves his energy. He's a fan favorite because the guy can flat put some points out there. But he's going to get a great test when we go to you and I in Missouri. So we'll know a whole lot more about Dennis Gustafson by the time with a month from now. We'll know between that trip to the Midwest and Vegas. We're going to have a really good feel for how he's doing at 41.
Moving to 149, Solomon Shishko up at the new weight class. Mentioned it. About his match of against Patricio Lugo of Edinboro, ends up coming from behind, getting a late takedown, forcing overtime, and then getting the victory in sudden victory. Did it just take him a while to get his feet under him, or what was the sluggishness do you think attributed to at 149 earlier in that match with Lugo?
Well, if you know Solomon, sluggish and Solomon can go together sometimes. As talented as he is, sometimes we have to light a fire underneath of him. He's a laid back guy, and he really has to sometimes force himself to get revved up, and so he took a butt chewing from just about all of us, I think, when he came off the mat. So hopefully that was his wake up call to know that you got to go out there, and obviously showed when he has to go, he can go, because if you watch the last 30 seconds of the regulation and the first 30 seconds of the overtime, that was like a minute of wow, but the other 6.5 minutes before that wasn't very good and not how he needs to approach it. So, that's going to be the struggle with him, is just to see how much work he's willing to put in there. And he's got to understand he's got to work. You go out there and shake hands, you got to go to work right away. And, he did the same thing last year when he wrestled the Penn State guy, the first home match. I think we had, he beat, Gillibon, and, took him to overtime to do it. He didn't really go out and go after him, but then when he got to overtime and he had to get it, he got it. But you can't depend on that all the time.
157 pounds. This is not the first time Sal Mastriani has given the coaching staff a heart attack and getting down big, but came back, beat Chase DeLand 15-10. I'm watching this thing going, how the heck is he down 9-3? And then all of a sudden, oh, he's coming back. He's coming back. He's coming back. I mean, ends up a win. You know, there's a win. It was an ugly win, but it was still a win.
Yeah, that was a good way to put it. It was an ugly win. You know, he made one mistake and gave up 6 points, and you know, but he came back and he fought back and got back in the match. And you know, he's got to if he wants to be getting the podium this year, he can't give up home runs, and that's kind of been Sal's chink a little bit, is that he gives up home runs. You know, just you know, the good thing with him at this weight right now, he's got a lot of energy and feels really good. So, you know, he's obvious to see he got the guy really tired and then just poured on the points. So it was kind of like a middle school match in Division I wrestling for a while there, wasn't it? It was just all over the place.
I'm sitting there watching it again from the floor of the Unidome going, are you, you know, really? Another crate, really? And then, okay, there we go. Actually, at one point, he's like, where's that kid from? I go, New Jersey. And he looked at me like, wait, he's coming back in the third period. He's from New Jersey. I says, hey, you know, they can do that sometimes.
Yeah, well,
a little poke at Jersey there, little poke at Jersey, just in fun.
25 points is, I think Vegas had it. It's definitely an overbet, you know, it's an overbet.
165 pounds, Austin Matthews of Edinboro, ranked 9th in the country, picks up a win, 13-6 over Mike Ciavaro, and then Ciavaro comes back, gets a victory over VMI. But, you know, has Ciavaro emerged as the guy at this weight class, or are there other options?
Well, actually, Mike's probably, you know, he's definitely he won the wrestle off. He's our number one guy right now. You know, obviously we got a guy that's pretty good named Dave McFadden that's at 165, but he literally got cleared to wrestle last week from the NCAA tournament. His knee rehab from an ACL tear it takes that long, and so we just got to get him wrestling back. But there's no plan to wrestle McFadden at this time. Right now, the plan right now is to redshirt him. So, you know, we did see some really good things out of Ciavaro. I'm seeing some really good things out of him in the room. So the next two events plus Vegas is going to tell us a lot about where he's at. We've got another guy in there that pushed him hard in the wrestle off named David Brigida. So, you know, maybe he'll be a factor in there too as we go on. But right now it's Ciavaro's the guy, and I feel like we're making progress there. You know, he took the guy down 2 or 3 times, but then he got taken down and got turned, and then we kind of played into what Matthews is good at. He's a guy that's, you have to really be careful when you attack him, because he's such a good counter wrestler, and we didn't do a very good job of recognizing that once we got into the match. You've got to be able to recognize that you're wrestling a guy that's a little funky and counter wrestler, and he didn't do that and just kind of kept making the same mistake. But he'll figure that out over time. He's a smart guy. He's a real hard worker. We just got to get him to be more offensive. Sometimes his nature is he stands around a little too much, and I think you can kind of tell when he's going to go, and then you can also kind of tell when he stands around. So he's got to work a little more out there and put more effort in, and he's got to get some attacks going and not be so segmented in my brain. He's got to just go, and I think he's capable of that. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how we progress it that way.
Yeah, 74 through 97. This was pretty much what you might be expecting if you're a Hokie fan. 6 outcomes, 5 of them were bonus points. You had major decisions from Zach Epperly in 2 bouts. You had major decisions from Jared Haught in 2 bouts. Zach Zavatsky, you know, has a win over a scrappy freshman named Dakota Greer, Pennsylvania kid. He's one of the Edinboro's best incoming kids, and you know, didn't get worried. You know, he kind of big brothered him, I think, in that respect. But you know, the last 3 weight classes, of course, without Ty Walls at heavyweight, you know, 5 bonus points in 6 bouts. That's got to be something you start the season very pleased with.
Yeah, we challenged those guys. We felt like we needed a bonus point at all those weights there. But with that said, I've really felt like those 3 guys weren't as sharp as we've seen in the past, and so that's the beginning. Maybe it's this first weekend of the year, and you know, guys are getting down to weight for the first time, and you know, all sorts of things. And I don't want to make excuses, but overall, I think all 3 of them. You know, there were some really good things that all 3 of them did, but there was also, in Hout's situation, we felt like he really didn't commit to some attacks, and Zavatsky got reversed and just kind of went to sleep there for a while, and that's not the kind of thing you want to do when you're wrestling, you know, a real quality guy. And Epperly had, you know, slow start in one of those matches, and, you know, things didn't probably progress the way he wanted to do against VMI. So, you know, in all it was a wake-up call. But, you know, those guys, I just kind of rate the whole weekend as just average. Some good things, some bad things, and those 3 guys were kind of part of that.
Another question now with the heavyweights that you got on the roster, you got some guys redshirting, you got some guys that are still green. Was it just say, all right, it's Billy Miller from Edinboro, and then there's VMI had another freshman. Was there any thought about throwing one of the bigger guys out there that wasn't named Ty Walls?
Well, we don't have obviously Ty was wrestling. Andrew Dunn is a freshman and he's redshirting, so you don't want to ruin a kid's redshirt obviously for one weekend. We got a guy named Cody Amos from Cave Spring. It's a true freshman. Torn labrum and had surgery in September. So he's 6 months from competing. And then we lost a guy from Matoka High School that's no longer left the team for personal reasons. And so boom, there you go. You have 4 and you're down to 0 real quick when you take Ty to Cleveland.
Gotcha. And let's just go right to that. Ty lost to Connor Medbury at the All-Star Classic. No experimental rules this year, just a straight-up match. From what you saw on the tape, what does Ty need to do? And, maybe is this something that, okay, Connor Medbury's here to play too? Yeah,
we knew he was good, and he's got great center of gravity, great hips, and Ty got in really nice. Didn't get his weight moving the way he wanted to, and wasn't able to capitalize on a really good leg attack, and then had one kind of brain fart on the edge of the mat, and probably got a little impatient and took a bad shot, and so that cost him there. But there was clear cut who the better guy was that night. It was Medbury was better, but at the end of the day, I still think we can make the adjustments, and I think Ty Walls. That match is a very winnable match for him. But I think Ty came back. I talked to him Sunday morning in Roanoke, and he was didn't like losing, but he's optimistic. I think he saw some things that he feels like he can do. So those guys. I don't know if Wisconsin's going to Vegas or not. Maybe these guys won't see each other again till St. Louis. That's probably the case, but probably that match might be looming.
Well, let's do just a little research here while we're at it, since we didn't really prep too much. Let's see. Wisconsin wrestling schedule. I will tell you that they are going to be in Las Vegas.
There we go. Yep. So that pretty good chance that match will happen again. I think Ohio State's going to be there too. That'd be something, those 3 guys there. But I don't know if they'll wrestle Mr. Snyder that weekend or not. They might not wrestle him.
Yeah, who knows? That's just got to be a weird dynamic for a coach to go into a tournament. Ohio State's going to be like, okay, is the Olympic champ going to be wrestling today or is he not? Because that really makes a difference in the team points.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah, that guy Snyder can score some points for some reason.
Yeah, he doesn't pin too many people, but he definitely scores a lot of points.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah, he scores a lot of bonus points. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. I know I'm sure he'll wrestle in some of their bigger opportunities in the Big Ten schedule, but and then obviously at Nationals. But I don't know how much they're going to use him early.
All right, and the last thing about this past weekend's competition, no starters at the Hokey Open, what used to be the Hokey Open, the Southeast Open up in Roanoke, but handful of freshmen in the freshman and sophomore division. Brent Moore picked up a title, Jarrett Deegan was second, numerous other place winners, including Cody Hughes, was also second. What's the decision? You got a day after dual meet. Was there any thought about putting some of the starters in there into the Hokey Open, the Open division, or was it just like this was the plan the whole way? We're going to wrestle 2, and our young kids are going to get a shot in the freshman sophomore division.
Yeah, because we scheduled 2, we weren't going to go any more than 2. It's just so early in the year, and one match maybe, but no, 2 was the 2 was a really good start for the beginning of the year for those starters, and so they're everybody's healthy, and we had a good training day yesterday. Nothing super hard, but we'll go hard Tuesday and Wednesday this week. And so we didn't want them too beat up. We're going to get obviously Vegas, and that trip to Iowa is going to be tough. So I think that was enough for them. And there was a chance for us to watch some of our young guys wrestle. And that's kind of why we put that freshman sophomore division in there a couple of years ago. And it turned out to be, there was 550 wrestlers in the darn tournament. So, everybody had to wrestle for a long time. It was, a well-run event. I think everybody got out of there by 6:30, but it was a lot of wrestling. And so, like you mentioned, Deegan and Cody Hughes got second, did a good job. We had BC LaPrade placing the freshman, sophomore, Brooks Wilding, and of course Brent Moore won it. I'm probably missing somebody and I'll get yelled at, but I think those are probably the main names that I saw placing. So I think we had 20 guys between some of our club guys and our backups and our redshirt guys that got to compete. And so, it was some good wrestling. A lot of those other schools brought their start lineup, so there was some good competition.
So move forward, the first Moss duel coming up on Sunday, November 13th at 1 p.m. That's against Chattanooga, a team that there's a healthy rivalry there. The Mocs come in ranked number 24. They're 1-0. They picked up a victory in an outdoor duel against NAIA Southeastern University of Florida. On paper, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I want to actually get to the trip with UNI and Missouri as we're looking ahead. Although you can't really look ahead against a team like Chattanooga. Solid coaching staff. Heath Esslinger has been with, a real good coach and developing talent. Of course, Dave Hoffman's down there with him, a guy you guys know very well. But, on paper, it looks like the Hokies favored in probably 8 out of the 10 bouts. So, what are the goals going in here? You got just a few tickets left for this at Hokeysports.com for the first Moss duel of the year. And, it's different from wrestling in Castle. You got a different type of opponent. And, you've got a coaching staff that knows how Virginia Tech wrestles.
Absolutely. You can never look ahead with Division I wrestling. You can never look ahead, and especially when the coaching staff on the other side knows us very well, and so it'll be a challenge to see if our guys can go out and execute the stuff that they're good at, that the other guys know they're good at, and obviously, we're favored on paper, and we expect to go in there and win. We always do, but we have to respect them, and we got to be ready to go. And and yeah, and as far as the venue and the circumstances, it's going to be a great weekend for us here. We've got a ton of recruits in because we've got a football game Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday we've got the wrestling dual meet at 1. So we've got, I think we got 25 or 30 recruits coming in this weekend that are going to get to do both. So that's a great opportunity for us to kind of showcase everything. And I think I got an email this morning that there was 23 tickets left and 1 box left out of, I think, about 11 or 1,200 seats, whatever it holds, between 11 and 1,200. So it looks like it's going to be sold out. That's pretty sure. So, it's going to be a great opportunity for our guys. And I'm sure that UTC is looking at it like a great test for them to see kind of where their guys are at. So I'm excited to see that crowd and to see how we compete.
All right, so not that I'm not skipping over the match here. You just said something that just made my eyebrows stand up. I was like, wait, how many recruits are going to be in? I remember back in the day at a various school that we both know pretty well. In the Gray Simons era, we might get two kids on a trip on a weekend. And Steve brought in, he probably tripled that number. I've never heard that many kids on a recruiting trip.
Yeah, man, we kind of focused on this weekend when we started, so we've got a lot of kids coming in, and almost all of those kids are unofficials. I think we got 2 official visits coming in and 20 some unofficial visits coming in. So that's the thing, anymore with kids, being able to communicate kids with juniors, and it's pretty evident out there how many juniors are verbaling in this day and age. So the amount of unofficial visits we have is exponentially higher than official visits.
Yeah, so what's the NCAA rules on that for those who are, I'm not completely keen on them, but for those listening going, well, how does that happen? How are the unofficial visits tracked?
Unofficial visits, all that we can provide is tickets to the football game and tickets to the wrestling match. And they have to they have to pay all the rest of their expenses. And official visits, you can pay for the whole weekend. But official visits can only happen during your senior year once your senior year starts. So that's the only way an official visit can happen. And each athlete's allowed 5 official visits once they become a senior. But the problem or the challenge is a lot of those kids have already verbaled by the time they've done that. So in those instances, you still bring them in for an official visit, and it's kind of a courtesy visit because they've already verbaled. And like tomorrow's the signing date, we're going to sign 5 guys tomorrow. Those kids have already been here on a visit for official visits, and about 4 of the 5 have been here on unofficial visits when they were a junior. So, the times have changed in the last couple of years just with the advent of us being able to communicate with juniors now, and we never were able to do that until a couple of years ago. So, and now, you've even got kids that'll reach out to you and want to come on a visit if they just know the game now. I think parents are entertaining offers in kids sophomore and even junior years because they know that everybody's kind of doing it. It's becoming more and more popular. So I'm not saying I like it or dislike it. You just have to play the game.
Now we'll jump ahead and talk about November 18th and 20th, Friday the 18th at West Gym, Cedar Falls, Iowa, at Northern Iowa, following that up with the trip to the Hearn Center in Missouri, at Columbia, Missouri on Sunday. I'll be down there for the Friday duel with UNI, so it's like the annual road trip to the Midwest. It's Iowa State, it's North Dakota State, now it's Northern Iowa, so I'll be down there on Friday night checking things out. And when you talk about West Gym, and, you know, growing up in Iowa, knowing what that facility is, it is tiny, it is hot, it is loud. It is probably one of the most perfect wrestling atmospheres if you think of what wrestling embodies from the state of Iowa and wrestling in general. What's it like going to be? You know, how do you got to tell these first time guys going into West Gym, be like, hey, this is going to be different than any other place you've ever wrestled?
Well, fortunately, we've got some guys that have already wrestled there, like Zach Epperly and Joey Dance and Ty Walls. They've already wrestled there when we went out there 2 years ago. So hopefully they'll do a good job of coaching our guys up a little bit. But it's definitely a different place to wrestle in. I wrestled there when I was in high school and when I was in college, both. So I know a lot about that place, and have been, and this will be, I think, the third time we went out there. Maybe the second. I think it's the second time we've wrestled at West Gym. We did a couple of years ago, and it was a shocker to those guys that I mentioned, just how loud it gets. And Schwab seems to have the monopoly on the heat, how much heat they can put in that building, because it's like wrestling in a steam room there. So it's always real hot, and we try to coach our guy, but it's basically like kind of wrestling in the practice room, because it's just a hot place to wrestle. So, and everybody's sitting right on top of you, and it's a great atmosphere, and they're tough there. I mean, they wrestle really tough there all the time. So, I saw their ranking this morning. They're ranked like, right around 20th or 22nd or something. I can assure you nobody's seen them. They're not a 22nd ranked team in the nation. They're playing possum, or their freshmen haven't got the credit they deserve. So I look at them as a top 10 team real soon. So we got two wars on our hands, that's for sure.
Yeah, with Missouri, having the great dual seasons the last couple of years, Brian Smith always got his guys coached up really well. I mean, what type of test is this going into Vegas right before Thanksgiving? You got UNI in a tough facility, and you got a dynamite program at Missouri that you've got to contend with.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if we're not on our game, you could go 0-2 real quick, and so we've got to be ready to go, and we got to go in there. And we've got to progress this week and progress a little bit of time we've got next week, and go in there and see what happens, let the fur fly. And, but we know they're going to, so you got to match that intensity and match fire with fire, as they say. So it's going to be exciting. If I can tell you, if I was a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid, maybe 23-year-old kid in some instances, that's what you want. That's where you want to be, and that's what you want to do. And that's why you go to college, because you love wrestling, and you love wrestling in those environments. I think we're going to wrestle Missouri in their arts center, which means that it'll be, packed and screaming, and everybody right on top of you. And that's the fun stuff, I think.
Oh, yeah, because they've got a theater. They've done duels there before, so it won't be at the Hearns. No,
I think I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty positive. I heard that that's where we're going to compete. I haven't even looked that far ahead. So,
you're going to make me do this twice in one episode. I'm going to go right to the opposing team schedule, because I didn't plan on talking this much about Missouri. But yes, at Jesse Auditorium. So
there you go.
Yeah, this is about a week after they wrestle my alma mater in Norfolk. But anyway, as we'll see you in Cedar Falls. I know I'll be there in person. But as we wrap up episode 2 of season 3, final thoughts for Hokie Nation out there. If they're coming out to Iowa, if they're coming to the Moss, it's coaches forum here. There you go. Go for it.
Well, we got, looks like we're going to have a sellout, Sunday. So, looking forward to seeing everybody there. And I know I've got a lot of, humbled Iowa folks coming to UNI. So we'll have a few Hokies there cheering. They probably might be wearing, orange T-shirt. An orange T-shirt and a purple T-shirt at the same time. But I think we'll have a little bit of Hokie representation in Iowa. And I think when we get to Missouri, the only scream that'll be on our end will just be our party. So, but it's fun to go in those challenges. So stay tuned. If you're a Hokie fan, you're going to get a lot of stuff the next 2 weekends.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.